as a serious real estate portal in the year 2025, do you think you need things like neighborhood analytics? Well, yeah, you probably do. Do you need things like interactive staging on your listing photos? You probably do, or you will do very soon. And would it be nice to have things like, seamless furniture shopping on your portal and real-time renovation estimates? Yeah, they sound great. If you think that those things might be useful or are useful, or that you should have those things on your portal right now, you should talk to our sponsor, PropTex. That's PropTex with two X's. You can head to PropTex with two X's.com, or you can hit the guys up on LinkedIn and, well, obviously say that we sent you. And now on with the podcast.
Hello and welcome to the PPW Pod, bringing you news, views and interviews from the world of real estate, online marketplaces and PropTech industries. My name is Harvey Hancock. I'm news editor at Online Marketplaces. And today we're asking a difficult question. How many Simons can you fit on one podcast? So as always, we're joined by...
The answer is not enough.
The visionary Oracle Simon Baker.
As I said, yes, I'm not that old yet.
And as I've come to be known in most circles, the other Simon.
And the other Simon, the tallest Simon on the podcast, Simon Bray, joining us from South Africa. How are you doing, Simon?
Good, thank you. Good to be with you guys.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you on the pod. It's been a long time coming, and it's a timely one, this, because you've got a new interesting job to tell everyone about, and there's going to be a couple of challenges that are definitely worth talking about for our audience to dig into the weeds of how you're going to approach it. So where were you, Simon, and now where are you?
Yeah, so good question. I've just recently relocated, or I'm in the process of relocating from Vancouver, Canada, where I was running rew.ca, a platform, vertical real estate platform in Canada, and moving to Kleinanzeigen, horizontal leader, German powerhouse marketplace based out of Berlin. So I'm currently in South Africa, a little bit of a halfway house, and I'll be in Europe full time in the next couple of weeks.
So can you give us a little bit of context about what Kleinanzeigen is? Where does it sit in the market? And what can you tell us about your missive at the company?
Well, the business is fascinating. It's Germany's biggest classified player. It's got about 2/3 of the internet population on the site each month. So very, very dominant from an audience perspective. Multi-category. So you're looking at electronics and home and garden and fashion, and of course real estate. So the platform is incredibly strong. It's the ex-eBay Kleinanzeigen platform, started under eBay ownership, part of the Adaptation group, and we can talk a little bit more about that in the future. But certainly a very exciting shift happening at Adaptation. And Kleinanzeigen is in this phenomenal position where it's established itself as a market leader in a number of different categories, and is looking to both specialize that user experience for those categories and grow its revenue opportunity as a result. So real estate is my missive, as you said. It's my opportunity to come in and deliberately build a modern, world-class real estate experience and real estate marketplace business within this incredible horizontal host, if you like. So yeah, it's going to be a good journey.
I mean, I have a quick question. How important is real estate to the whole Kleinanzeigen business?
Yeah, so it's very important, I'd say, as a category for engagement. Depending on the numbers that you look at, we're actually the biggest real estate marketplace audience in Germany. And of course, ImmoScout24 is the big name in real estate portals in Germany. And so they may disagree with that, but the traffic is significant. And so there's a huge amount of engagement already happening on the real estate category in the platform. But from a revenue perspective for the business, it's not the biggest show in town by any means. I think we are around 10% of revenues today. So there's a big opportunity for upside as we professionalize the platform and as we grow out the kind of value offering for the private seeker, well, the private listers and advertisers as well.
Okay, so the way I sort of think about it is, it's Kleinanzeigen is a massive horizontal, large audience, but hasn't really done the verticalization of real estate well yet, and thus hasn't unlocked potentially inherent value in the proposition.
Yeah, exactly right. The way I've heard it described to me a number of times now from the industry is that we're this hidden champion. They're looking for this sleeping giant with all this kind of potential to rise in the market. But we've been doing real estate for 10 years already. So, but it's been done very much in a kind of generic horizontal playbook as opposed to a deep verticalized playbook that you would see in, you know, certainly in a pure play property portal, and you would see in some more well-established horizontals like Fin or TradeMe. So that's the game. The game is to try and create a much better seeker-oriented experience around real estate, and to build out a deep offering for both professionals and privates, and grow the revenue alongside.
When you look around the world at other horizontal players like OLX Brazil, Le Bon Coin, TradeMe, the three that sort of come to mind, right? Each of them have approached monetization of the real estate segment differently. OLX Brazil bought a vertical, right? They already had it, but they said, no, this is too hard. We'll buy a vertical and integrate. And then Le Bon Coin went very aggressively, sort of, targeted a blend of what Seleger was doing and a blend of what particular doing, or the private segment. And TradeMe, of course, took on the industry head on. Okay, and they were very aggressive in pricing, probably put their prices up too much, too fast, and ended up with a big industry backlash about 10 years ago or so. How, A, do you look at these guys for inspiration and for ideas, and B, what sort of lessons are you learning from them to apply, and what's the approach you're going to take? They're probably the two sort of questions that would be interesting to explore.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm trying to educate myself as quickly as possible in this new generalist world that I've entered, because I've come to it very much from a kind of vertical playbook, and understanding how a pure play property portal would grow into a market. So we are certainly looking at the other players that you mentioned, as well as the kind of Scandinavian generalist platforms, and that's on the one side of the education mix. And then on the other side of the education is coming into the German market and just understanding the current market dynamics and who your competitors are and how you're going to grow into the market, and trying to synthesize between the two. You mentioned the path for an OLX Brazil versus a path for, say, a TradeMe. I think a lot of that also has to do with their relative market positions at the time. And we are in a fascinating position where we're certainly offering at least the number two's value to the professional advertisers that we have on the platform, but we're seen as the kind of the bonus platform, the number three from an industry perception and kind of value perception point of view. ImmoScout 24 is obviously seen as this the incumbent monopolist type number one. And so you have the same sort of dynamics that you'd have in the UK or in some of these other markets where there's kind of like an anti number one feeling from the industry. And so for how should we approach this? We definitely like some of the insight that we're getting from the horizontals, where they don't try and just emulate the vertical, but they build a differentiated value proposition and a differentiated positioning in the market. Even in New Zealand, little old New Zealand with Trade Me and Real Estate.nz, I think one is very clearly an industry-oriented vertical offering, and there's something about that as a portal partner to the established real estate industry. And the other is positioned very much as kind of like a consumer-centric marketplace platform, and in their case, quite dominant. So, the ability to kind of push prices and maybe have a slightly antagonistic relationship with the advertisers. In our market, I think it's going to be a completely different mix. We need to be the fair value partner to the advertisers, both privates, but most specifically professionals, and we need to be differentiated from the incumbent vertical portal. So it needs to look and feel and effectively deliver a slightly different value to what they're delivering. I think it would be dangerous for us to just be another Immavelt or another ImmoScout. I think we need to have a very different place. And
So
the
how
way
do
I
you do that?
describe,
So,
yeah.
what is the proposition that's going to be different? Because it's interesting if you look at. I was just thinking then, if I was looking about what Leboncoin did or Trade Me did, is they said, well, I've got, you got two sides of the coin. You got the industry on one side, or the advertiser on one side, because there's also private sellers, especially in France. And then on the other side, you have the searcher, the property searcher for renting, and they've lent probably more on the search side than on the advertiser side. And what I mean by that is Seligere was always industry only, but had about 55% of the market. Then they had things like particular and entre particular and so on, who were peer-to-peer sites, which was private sellers. And Leboncoin said, well, we don't care. We're on the side of the home buyer, and the home buyer doesn't mind if it's buying a real estate site through an agent or directly from Harvey, for example. Just show me what's on the market. And they sort of blew up this industry structure. And Trade Me sort of leveraged its big audience to do the same, right? Because realestate.co.nz was owned by the industry and run by the industry, and they were slightly handcuffed, I think, in what they could do. And Trade Me said, I don't care. What I care about is driving value, creating value so driving value to the advertiser. I'm going to charge the appropriate price. So I put my prices up, and so on. Which way do you want to lean, right? How do you differentiate yourself in this process?
Yeah, I think the answer is absolutely in leaning into that seeker-centric approach that Leboncoin took, and that what you just referenced. The way I see it in Germany right now is you've got two very industry-centric players on the one side of the spectrum in ImmoScout and Immavelt, and then on the other side of the spectrum you've got perhaps a little bit of a kind of messy, rough around the edges, diamond in the rough Kleinanzeigen, with all this consumer engagement and real enthusiasm from private advertisers. And what you don't want to lose as you move towards the professionalization of the platform is you don't want to lose that consumer champion essence that Kleinanzeigen has. And so the way I think that we will approach it is to lean into that differentiation, to say, no, we're an open marketplace platform. We're going to focus on kind of core drivers of success for advertisers. We're going to create and optimize around the core find a home experience for seekers. I'm now a home shopper in Berlin. I come into the market, I'm looking for an apartment to live in, and I'm using all of these platforms. And it is remarkable how far towards the kind of industry intermediary these other players, these other portals have got in their business models. I mean, everybody looks at the Scout financials, and you look at kind of like the Rent Plus offering and these subscription services for seekers. And everyone's like, oh, this is a fantastic business model. We should definitely have it in our market. But when you're actually a customer of that service, as I've been in Germany, you just realize how negative that experience can be. You're signing up for a 3, 6, or 12-month subscription to find an apartment that you hope to find in a week or two. And there's no getting out of said subscription. There's no direct correlation between kind of value and experience. And so I think it's quite a negative experience for the seeker. And it's definitely just a signal of how far to that industry side, that intermediary side of the ecosystem that they're leaning. And so I think it leaves a lot of room open for a seeker-centric, consumer-oriented platform to really grow in adoption in that particular market.
So just exploring that for a second. If I understand what you're saying is I'm looking to rent a house in Berlin, for example, and I can sign up to a service by Scout24 for 3, 6, or 12 months. And I pay how much do I pay?
I think it's about 30 euro a month.
Okay. And what do I get as a home searcher, right? So this is sort of an alien concept. Am I paying to look at listings? Or can I look at the listings for free, but I'm paying for some additional service on top?
And there's contacting the agent, right? I think
Yeah,
is contacting agents behind a paywall, I think.
Yeah, that's ostensibly what I paid for, is to kind of put a badge on myself as a seeker that I am now somehow more serious than other seekers, and for my lead to go to the top of the list, at least theoretically, to go to the top of the list with the advertiser. And so they see my response ahead of other responses. And for me, it's very opportunistic, related to just the incredible demand versus supply dynamic that you've got in Germany. And you probably find it in other markets as well. There are very few good places on the market, and a lot of potential tenants, or a lot of potential buyers. But you're basically being encouraged to pay to send an inquiry to an advertiser.
Right. So at the end of the day, they're arbitraging the fact that the demand is greater than supply.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And that desperation will lead people to do desperate things.
Yeah, and make no mistake, it's incredibly successful. Like when you see the adoption rates and how it's growing as a service, all indicators would be that it's a great business model. My counter would be that it's just quite far from that balanced marketplace view, where as a marketplace you exist to connect advertisers and seekers in the most effective way. You've now kind of lent towards a model that intermediates as opposed to disintermediates. But whether it's right or wrong, it obviously opens some flank for us to come in with a great user experience and a great reply experience. Because remember, most of the traffic on Kleinanzeigen is happening inside the app. The app has, great communication features between advertiser and seeker, and that's an area that we can really enhance to create a better journey for seekers when they're looking for a home.
So I guess I'm just thinking about this. I'm paying 30 euros a month to get to the top of the response pile, in theory. Do you have to fill out a form, say something about yourself, or just the fact you spent 30 is the qualification, right? That, a non-serious person, a tire kicker, wouldn't pay 30. So therefore, is it as simple as that?
I think that's a large part of it. I think it's,
okay.
Having experienced it now, I anticipated a lot more kind of service behind the scenes. Yeah, and there's a little bit of like getting daily notifications of listings, and being having the listings a little bit more real time in your dashboard. But but most of it relates to the fact that you are now somehow better than the guys who don't have the badge.
But wait a second. But if I put a bit of AI technology behind all of this and said, there's Harvey, he's coming to the website every day, he's engaging with the newsletters, and I sort of can do a seriousness score on Harvey, and he gets a 9 out of 10. He's a serious home hunter. Isn't that the same outcome at the end of the day? As long as the advertiser feels like you're doing some work for them beyond getting 30 euros a month out of Harvey, which to me, I'm actually more interested as the advertiser to know what he's looking for, the fact where he's dwelling on the images, he's really interested in the backyard or whatever, and by the way, I've also worked out that he's got, I don't know, a contract, Harvey, okay, as well as sorry, that's between Harvey and I, and he can afford to buy or afford to take out a mortgage, he can afford to pay the rent and so on. That's more important than the fact that he can afford to pay 30 euros a month.
Yeah, look, and make no mistake, there are additional add-ons. I can build out my profile, I can add my credit score, I can do a whole bunch of things at additional cost.
Additional costs.
Yeah, and so that could be very, very valuable. Again, it comes to this demand-supply dynamic, where if I need to compete with 25 other potential tenants, then I need to absolutely look the best. But you're right, a lot of that kind of lead qualification, lead scoring, should be part of the service, and it's certainly something that we would look at. Is how can we? Because at the end of the day, it's that core marketplace value. How can you help people be successful? Your seekers to be successful in their home search, and your advertisers to be successful in selling or leasing their property. And so, if we can create better matches between individuals, then we're obviously achieving those goals.
As a just a point of interest, ladies and gentlemen, Simon and I did have a call before this to discuss what kind of topics we could talk about on this podcast, and you came up with something quite interesting, which was conversational commerce. So you mentioned it a couple of minutes back there about a lot of conversations happening in app on Kleinanzeigen. There's a couple of questions in there, which is how much supply is there in the market for people to find what they're looking for via this conversational commerce? But secondly, how are you going to optimize that real estate experience via an app that consumers are using on a day-to-day basis? That's something I'd really like to dig into there.
Actually, can you define conversational commerce as well?
Well, it's a whole new thing, Simon.
I don't even know if it's a thing. It's the way that it makes sense to me to describe the under optimized process in real estate search. The part that few people have talked about, I think, or thought about hard enough, is what happens after I find a place that I'm interested in. You've got the next step challenge. People can search and find on portals, and there's a great experience around exploration, but there's not a very good experience about actual execution. Like, how do I take that next step? Who do I talk to? Are they responsive to me? I think the numbers haven't changed on this almost since the advent of portals, that maybe 40-50% of inquiries go completely unanswered, and the ones that are answered are perhaps answered days later. And if anybody's been in any form of kind of digital lead follow-up business, they know that if you're not responding quickly, you're actually missing that opportunity to close that client. So that's what I mean by conversational commerce. Is what does the flow look like after a seeker has made an inquiry with a advertiser? Now, the traditional method of that is, you send an email or you view a phone number. Maybe there's some call tracking on that phone number, and maybe you get some insight from the call. But increasingly, people want to have this asynchronous but highly direct communication channel of chat. And what's cool about that is it offers this opportunity for the portal to be involved in the chat. And I just don't think people have done that enough. This idea of stimulating the initial engagement and helping them through the key processes that they're looking to achieve. Like, I want to view the home. Okay, when do you want to view the home? When is it available? There's a whole back and forth there that I think could be facilitated by AI increasingly, but just by focusing on what that experience looks like. The other one is qualification. Like you said, a lot of the information that you want to know about the customer or the seeker, you could find out after they show interest in a listing. It's like, do you have your credit score? Do you need to get one? Have you, and the same for the advertiser, have you got the energy certificate for the property? All of this kind of like back and forth between parties could be facilitated far better. And a great example of that for me in marketplaces is how, and it's an old one, but it's a goodie, is Airbnb. You create a guest experience and a host experience, and it becomes a whole facilitated transaction journey that is positive for both parties. Like at the end, they're super stoked about what just occurred. Instead of real estate, where it's this like black hole and you hope that somebody gets hold of you. And so this is what I mean by conversational commerce, is how can we stimulate the conversation? Because ultimately it's a people business. And how can we be enablers of that conversation? And I think the tech is at the point now where it can really be seamless.
Yeah, actually, you've raised something interesting, and I didn't realize that conversational commerce will now be the catchphrase. But I had been speaking a lot with a few people about AI-driven buyers agents. So if you think about the search process, we'll use Harvey here, right? He's looking for a house or a home, right, to rent, to buy, and that's a journey, it's a long journey. It's never a wake up in the morning and it's done by the afternoon sort of thing. It's a bit of a process you've got to go through, and for most people, it's a process they don't really understand. And if nowadays I find myself increasingly talking at my phone, sometimes swearing at my phone, but I'm talking to AI, right? And it's interacting with me in a very conversational way. Now, to me, the future start with the easy one to answer, the buyer's agent side, okay? Because most people don't have a buyer's agent unless you're in the US. Is how do you help me on that journey? How do you engage with me? Help me find the right place. Help me make sure I've got funding. Make sure I'm I got I can move my goods. Help me imagine what my furniture looks like in the target house. Stuff like PropTex does, and so on, right? And all this stuff comes together as my AI digital partner in my journey. Now, I've always thought, oh, who's best to do that? Is it a real estate agent? Maybe, but probably not, right? But it should be a portal brand, I think. Now, they're probably the best position to do it. And it's about leveraging existing brands. So I could imagine a Kleinanzeigen AI conversational agent, but it's my buyer's agent, and you call him Hans or something, right? Because it's German, you'd have Hans. My AI agent. I could go off on a big journey here, but I won't. Okay. And I was thinking that it would just sort of say, "Hi, Simon, it's Hans here. I'm here to help you buy your house. Look, can we just have a conversation about what you're looking for? Okay. Why are you moving? Well, I've got a new job. Okay. So tell me about that new job. Oh, okay. Well, where's it going to be? Do you need to be close to public transport? It basically asks me a whole bunch of questions that are really just logical questions, but they can be asked in any order in a conversation. And all you're doing is building up a profile. Now, just the fact I've had that conversation negates the need to pay $30 or 30 euros, right? Because I've gone and done it. And now Hans goes off and goes, okay, Simon, I'm going to put together a list for you of all listings that meet your criteria. Now, why does it have to be on Kleinanzeigen? Why can't it be on any website, right? It could be anything. And we did a podcast yesterday with Darius from 99 Co. And we were talking about, they got some cool search functionality where you can, you put in a bunch of things that you want and it'll uncover the properties. But I thought I'd try and parallel a product called Manus.ai, right? And I gave it the same criteria and it came back with fundamentally the same results. Okay. Now, what's interesting though is those results weren't just on 99 Co. They're also on SRX. Luckily for him, he owns it. But it was also on Property Guru and also some agent sites because the AI doesn't care. So if instead of worrying about the I think the interesting thing is historically we've put the portal at the middle and everything sort of bolts off that, including the users. Okay. But maybe we should shove the user at the middle and have Kleinanzeigen's, Hans, the AI buyer's agent. Okay. And I think you end up with that same, the half of that Airbnb experience. And then you can do the same with Franz, who's the, seller's agent, right? The seller's agent or seller's partner that works with the real estate agent, of course, in the process, because we don't want to annoy that industry. But why can't Franz help me with private sales?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a great conversation because this is, it feels very tangible for me, having worked in the Canadian market for as long as I did. There you already have this interesting dislocation of different parts of the workflow in different individuals, in different kind of like intelligent assistants. And so everything you've described around this buyer's agent experience is actually very positive. Like if I'm looking for a house in Vancouver, as I did, I had my own buyer's agent, and he was awesome. He'd help me do all the difficult things of coordinating my home search, the actual transaction flow that you expect them to be involved in, and the counseling education component that is so much easier to do when you're just having a conversation with someone. And so the idea of a buyer's agent is now very obvious to me. But when you come into these other markets where you effectively only have a listing agent and a portal, then it's a big missing component of the experience. And this is where I think technology, particularly the AI, kind of agentic capabilities of AI that you were just describing, become super important. I hadn't really thought beyond the portal, but you're quite right. That's how it works in the US and Canada. Your buyer's agent is kind of portal agnostic. They help you go wherever you need to go. So yeah, there's certainly something very interesting there, but I think it starts with acknowledging that follow-on process, beyond just seeing a few great ads on a website. Everything that happens next is actually not great. It's ripe for improvement, and then figuring out how you build a completely different type of experience there. And I don't think it looks like subscriptions and form-based experience. I think it looks more like a conversational human experience, and that's fundamentally what we want to explore. And I think it makes sense to explore it inside of Kleinanzeigen because of how kind of seeker-centric and oriented towards the ordinary man it is.
Yes. Well, but those horizontal businesses are fundamentally buy-side operations more than anything else. Their sole job in life is to get as many human beings to look at the website, to transact, to buy as many, I don't know, nappies or diapers, right? Prams, I don't know, wedding invitations, who knows what, right? And a house, right? Okay. And it's very much from that side. And I think if you can then say, well, it's a brand that people trust. Okay. I'm not sure what percentage of the German population would touch Kleinanzeigen every year, but I assume it's a large percentage. Okay. And if that brand has, and if they're doing that regularly, it's because they must trust it to give the right results or deliver the right quality goods. How do you take that brand and extend it to an experience, an end-to-end experience? And AI is the perfect tool to do it because it's smart enough now to work out, and especially with a bit of training, ask Simon all these questions or ask Harvey all these questions in this example. And then we help him find the properties. In parallel, we're sorting out loans, we're sorting out removalists, we're getting quotes. How many, Harvey, can you just walk around, take some, if I was the AI tool, I'd be going, Harvey, can you just take a video of your apartment or your house? Okay. And it's automatically going, it's categorizing everything. And it says, fantastic. Now I know what you've got in your house. So I can now work out, you need to have 20 square meters or cubic meters stuff to transport, and I've got 3 quotes for you ready to go from Madrid to, I don't know, let's say you're moving to Berlin. Okay, all the stuff.
I wish it were that easy. I could tell you right now, it's not that easy. But
no, it isn't.
Yeah, I mean,
not yet.
Not yet.
But it has to be eventually, right? It has to be at this point where, because if I think about it, so I'm looking at my living room here and I've got a couple of couches and pictures and whatever. I'm going, if I had to take all this stuff from here in Monaco to Madrid, they're gonna, what are they gonna ask? The first question that says, no problems, how much stuff? And I'm gonna go, a truckload. Right now, then they're gonna, that's great. How big a truck? And I'm gonna go, I don't know. Right. So they're gonna say, well, we have to send someone, or can you send some pictures or whatever, right? And well, why can't you automate all that? It's not that hard. I mean, I've spoken to the guys at PropTex, and they do a whole bunch of stuff where they say, take a picture of a room, they strip out all the furniture, they model it, they work out that this couch is 2 meters long or whatever it is. Okay. And then they go, well, if they can do that, why can't that be done? So I can imagine this buyer's agent app, but it's more than a buyer's agent app, right? It's a buyer and moving agent app. It's like that whole journey. Okay. And it, you need finance, you got to find the house you want, you got to remove your stuff from A to B, you got to buy insurance, you've got to turn on your gas, your water, electricity. I think in Germany, if you're getting an apartment, you're probably going to put a kitchen in there. I think the kitchen's
that was a surprise to me.
That's your problem in Germany.
That was a surprise. Sans kitchen was something I didn't expect on a listing. Yeah.
Yes. I know. I used to live in Munich. I get it.
Simon, could we sorry to butt in over you, Simon, because I do realize we've gone on another 15-minute AI tangent, which we're prone to do on this podcast.
No, but we can talk about boring things like newspapers, or we can talk about the future.
We can talk about the future, but I do want to talk about the future, because here's where it gets interesting for Kleinanzeigen, is because you're a part of Adaptation, right? And Adaptation, as we know, there's been a big consortium taken over 13 billion euros, whatever it was. And pretty much we know that every asset is up for sale in the next 5 years, for example. Now, you've been brought in to improve the real estate vertical, but I can't see Adaptation giving you millions and millions and millions of euros to grow the platform, et cetera, because obviously they want to make a return on it and sell it in the future. So you've got a big battle ahead of you where you're not exactly bootstrapped, but you're going to have to do it on a budget, right? And you said in our prep call for this podcast that you like to work on a growth funded cycle, whereby the business's successes fund future growth and product development and stuff like that. So I'm just trying to work out, where do you get the new, what's the monetization model here for Kleinanzeigen? And then how are you going to follow that up and turn it into an asset that is ready to be sold to another buyer in 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time, Mr. Bray?
Yeah, look, I think part of that's obviously going to be the strategy and the approach that we bring to growing the business. But I must say, the kind of macro opportunity is the real driver of the value. You're talking about a highly used, well-loved brand and platform, and you're talking about multiple categories with different opportunities for growth and expansion. So I wouldn't say it's inevitable, but there is a great degree of momentum and some incredible kind of headwinds that will lend to the value increase in Kleinanzeigen. And that's one of the reasons I got super excited to join the business. It's not often where, seemingly small improvements can lead to outsized impacts. And I think that's what's going to happen certainly in the Kleinanzeigen real estate story. There are fairly straightforward things that we need to do. And in fact, that's the biggest thing to figure out, is how much of it do we do almost as a kind of table stakes follower type approach, and where do we want to lead or leapfrog and do something completely innovative and kind of market changing. And getting that balance right is probably going to be the biggest challenge. So the headwinds are there,
how are you
the
going to
momentum is
approach that
there.
challenge is the question. I guess maybe that's the more fun question then, is how do you approach where to stick to the playbook and where to chuck it out the window?
Well, I think what we've got is this incredible dynamic of, at least the ambition right now is to be a significant partner to the professional industry. So call that the de facto alternative to the incumbent number one in Immo Scout. So that's quite a cool opportunity to grow into on its own. A clear number two platform in the professional space. But then there's this other extraordinary opportunity, which is this number one consumer-oriented private listing platform, which we already have a kind of significant position in. But there is huge opportunity to enable those advertisers in ways that they haven't been enabled before, to really ensure kind of the success that they're looking for from the platform. And the combination of those two, this kind of number one C2C player in a market like Germany, which is very do-it-yourself and C2C oriented, plus the number two de facto alternative platform for professionals, that combination is a really fascinating mix. And so if you had to push me today, I would say, the playbook probably applies pretty well to that B2C oriented offering. But the playbook is wide open when it comes to the consumer-oriented offering. Like, where do we take the DIY enablement part of the conversation? So the balance is probably going to be found in that. Like, how much do we want to lean into the professional industry opportunity, and how much do we want to lean into the private market opportunity? Because I think there'll be a difference in kind of new and innovative versus playbook and value capture. I don't know if you see it the same way, Simon, but that's sort of how I see it playing out.
Yeah, I think there's I agree with you. I mean, part of the challenge is you can't be a me too, because because then they go, well, got Scout24, got Immowelt or Vive, what Immowelt, ImmoNet, what's it called now? Immowelt, right? They merged Immowelt, right? And then and you go, well, I can't be me too, so I've got to do different. Where's my strengths? Also, you got to think about your current assets and your strength. Your strength is you've got a brand, but your brand is relatively generic, not specific. Scout 24 equals real estate. Kleinanzeigen equals something else, right? Doesn't equal real estate, it equals many things. It's something different. So how do I leverage that? But you've got a very strong audience and brand relationship. So you do end up leaning more into the consumer side, but leaning into that side to get higher quality output. Okay, in an unencumbered way, so you're not worried as much as an organization of how much value you extract from the real estate industry, because Kleinanzeigen as a whole is capturing revenue from many different sources. So that gives you more freedom to try other things. And I think you lean into your consumer heritage and brand and strength. You leverage AI technology to, those two coming together equals stronger, higher quality leads, which is what the industry wants. Because what the industry wants, and I don't know who was talking to yesterday about this, but it's really two things. They want the same commissions faster. Okay, so if I can say, well, and they don't, and they're perpetually worried about their future. Okay, and it was so funny. I trotted out for Harvey and Ed the other day some examples of what LJ Hooker in Australia had written about realestate.com.au 22 years ago. The death of the industry, they're the enemy, blood dripping down a page, all this sort of stuff, right? And what at the core the agency want is to wake up in the morning, fundamentally do the same job, get paid the same commission, but if we could do, instead of 10 sales a month, we could do 12 sales a month. Well, how are you going to do 12 sales a month? Well, you've got to work out either you close the closable ones faster or you spend less time on the non-closable ones. Okay, so if you sort of break it down into the really core basics and you say, well, I'm going to help you spend your time on the closable ones and waste less time on the non-closable ones, because I'm going to use technology and my relationship with with buyers and everything I can find out about a human. And the other thing that you can do with Kleinanzeigen, of course, is Harvey's not only there for buying a house, he's also buying a pram. He's buying lots of pink bunting to go around a new room with a baby. No, sorry.
No idea where that came from.
Anyway, it could be, or you're buying a Zimmer frame if you're at the other end of the spectrum. Okay,
That's for you, Simon.
Not quite. Okay, I'm just buying a lot of notepads because I keep forgetting things. Right. Anyway, the whole point is you can build a much greater profile about a person by not only what they say but what they do, and that can then feed into, hey, Mr. Agent, these are closable. And by the way, just because the fact that someone spends 30 euros doesn't mean they're closable.
Yeah.
Okay, they might have spending 30 euros because of whatever reason, but they're really not going to move for 6 to 12 months. Versus, baby bunting Harvey, he's having a kid no, I know he's not, but he could be having a kid within 9 months. It's not like you can delay that for another 9 months. Okay. So I think there's some things that you can do that become unique and provide real value to the advertiser, so they can then make, at the essence, more money.
Yeah, that's that idea of interacting with your seekers on a more frequent and ongoing basis has always been a desire of the vertical platforms, but it's always really, really hard for them to achieve because people are in this property consideration process for a relatively long period, but with big gaps in between. And of course, the horizontal has this opportunity to touch them almost daily with different offers and different transaction types, and that really should be an opportunity for us to excel. I don't think it's not been proven out by anyone yet, but I definitely think that's an area for us to innovate, and that's one of those areas that I was describing earlier. This opportunity to leapfrog or to lead It absolutely should be on like consumer insight and the ability to engage with that consumer on a more frequent basis.
Yeah, while it hasn't been proven out yet, what has been proven is that the more data you have about anything, the higher, the more value you release. So look at something like a CoStar with all its data it collects around commercial property. Okay. And it's released enormous value. Or something like Home Track in the UK, right, that collected all this data historically about residential homes, was able to do the valuations of those businesses, and then it changed the way the industry worked. So I think it's just a case of you investing the time to understand more about the buyer, finding some incredibly simple way of communicating that. Gold, silver, bronze star. Yeah, Harvey's a gold star. Gold star equals has the money to buy, is going to close in 3 months. And that's not a negotiable. It's new job. It's kid coming. It's who knows, whatever. Right? There'll be some things that are you can't dodge, and I think that and then the question is, how do I communicate that to my advertiser in a way A, they believe it, and B, they can action it.
Yes. Yeah, and that's always the trick is actually getting that action. You know, at the end of the day, we just want a good experience when we're on one of these platforms, and I just don't think that urgency is there. So part of it is also, how do you put the right incentives in place for different parties, and that kind of entice and enable model to drive people towards the outcomes that are actually best for both of them, but for some reason we don't naturally do. I think of just like that simple one, like how do you get back to a lead quickly? How do you get back to somebody that's showing interest? And part of it is, yes, they've got a gold star, I better get back to this one. But part of it is also probably, if I don't get back to a whole bunch of them, well then, maybe there's some disincentive for me when advertising my next listing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I know we're gonna have to wrap up soon, Harvey, but I got one other question, slight detour.
I've got a curveball as well, interestingly.
Okay.
So
Well,
you go first. You go first, Simon.
No, your curveball may be the same. You go first. Hurry up.
Okay. My curveball is it's a completely different market. I want a quick word on vendor paid advertising in the US. CoStar's trialing something in the US, and you were like, can I create a sell side portal with, a successfully scalable VPA product in the States? Just a quick word on CoStar and its Boost product, Simon Bray.
Yeah, well, how quick, I don't know. I mean, everything we've just described is kind of this buyer agent model, this idea that AI is going to play an increasing role on behalf of the buyer and give them this kind of concierge experience. This idea of, certainly in the US, of leaning into a completely different listing agent-centric market view is a bit like counter everything we've just described. The US is an analog version of this digital buyer's agent experience that we just described. It's got a great buyer's agent experience. It's got a good listing agent experience. The only thing I would say about vendor paid advertising is you have two very different incentive structures. For the agent, I agree with Simon. They just want to get the deal done. And so, the quicker you can get the deal done, the more frequently you can do deals, the more you're going to earn. The actual selling price of the home does not really matter to the agent. The seller themselves has a great incentive to get, one additional bidder can make a significant difference to a sale price. And so that's where I think vendor paid advertising is pretty interesting, is if the seller figures out that they stand to earn 2, 5, 6% more if they get an additional bidder, then I think it could stick. But overall, it is going very much against the grain for the US and Canadian market. to try and bring vendor paid advertising or anything that's listing agent centric. They've done an incredible job with the MLS of dislocating supply aggregation, like where all the listings are, from demand aggregation, like where all the buyers are. And the portals own the buyers, and so they're going to monetize them through these buyer agent schemes, like Zillow does very effectively with Premier Agent. And the listing agents are going to monetize it the way they currently do through their commissions. And I don't know if the portal is going to get involved in that listing agent revenue stream to the degree that certainly Andy and CoStar want. But I guess time will tell. They certainly, getting domain in the fold will give them a lot of expertise in that space. So let's see.
Good answer.
Sorry,
Simon, what's your curveball?
Well, okay. Well, a quick thought on Simon's comment, and it was sort of a couple of elements. One is, you can make money out of vendor paid advertising through FUD. Do you know what FUD is? Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Yeah.
Right. I.e., it's not reality. It's just like, Harvey, if you don't spend the money on, you're going to miss out that extra buyer. It's only another $1,000, and you might get 20,000 extra more on the sale price. Right. That's the FUD. Right. Right. It's the fear of missing out. The, oh my God, what happens if? Right. But does it fundamentally make a difference at the end of the day? Probably not. Serious buyers will probably find the house. It's very unlikely that, oh yeah, my house was listed on the website. They didn't find me because I wasn't the first house listed. Oh, come on. We're not selling iPhones or AirPods, these sort of things. We're selling a house. It's an experience. This is a life-changing experience and the biggest investment you'll ever make in your life for 99% of people. And they search. That's why they take a long time. And I think an AI-driven buyer's agent will unsurface all this shit anyway. So I don't need to pay vendor-paid advertising to be pushed to the top of the search to find something that my AI agent's going to go find for me anyway. Okay, and so I think it's a little bit of a house of cards. Okay, and that's and I've had this anyway. That's my view on that one. And then my curveball. Here we go, curveball. South African, moves to Spain, moves to Vancouver, now's gone to Germany. Didn't speak Spanish, don't speak German, little Afrikaans, but I'm not sure quite that works. Probably qualifies you for a visa now in the US. Anyway, we'll move on from that one. Okay. But I'm wondering, how do you cope with this transition? You've got a family, you're moving around, you've got different languages you've got to deal with, you've got employees who speak different languages. How do you become effective in that sort of transactional or transitional environment?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary challenge. I mean, I first of all, I think it's our innate human superpower is the ability to adapt. So you have to really lean into this kind of adaptable quality that I think all of us have to different degrees. The language, thankfully, the teams that I've engaged with have been generous enough to speak to me in English. I'm dangerous in any other language.
What about behind your back?
Oh yes, no, there are plenty of meetings I'll join and they're not talking English, and then they'll switch. Culturally, it is quite challenging. Like, that's what I have noticed going from team to team in different environments in different countries. The way they approach work, the way they approach each other, the way they approach debate, all very, very different. And so that's probably the area where you have to be the most adaptable, certainly on a professional level. On a personal level, I'm just very lucky that I have a very patient wife. In fact, when I took this opportunity in Germany, part of me was saying to Em, look, why didn't you just say no? It would have been so much easier if you told me there's no ways you are moving another continent. But she's been incredibly gracious, and that's helpful. I think if you can't, move with your family, if you don't have that kind of support nucleus around you, it must be very, very difficult to do this. But it's a great journey, and we'll see where it leads to next. It's one of these things where you can't plan what the next path will take you. For now, Berlin, and we're going to live into that season.
Good. Have you
Very
noticed
wholesome.
have you noticed that meetings are different in Germany? They start on time.
Yes. Yeah. No, I have never seen so many meetings in my schedule that start at 5 past. Usually it's like on the hour, but here we have on the hour meetings and 5 past the hour meetings. So there is an element of precision that, let's just say, it wasn't evident in Africa or Spain.
In Spain, the meeting
it's
just
good.
doesn't happen. It just gets postponed till tomorrow.
Yes. But have you also
Yeah.
noticed, though, that in the meetings that the Spanish will talk on top of each other, right? They just, I'm talking, then someone else talking, and before you know it, you go, "Yeah, whatever." In Germany, they all wait.
Yeah.
They actually
Yeah.
listen. It's a
Yeah.
fabulous skill,
But
and
you
one
do know,
I highly recommend.
but you know why, right? The verb is at the end of the sentence,
I see.
Ah,
So you
right?
have to
So
wait
okay.
till the end.
you have to wait to find out what the verb is that goes like the sentence. And so if things, and they can change the meaning of a sentence by waiting to the end. So I discovered this when I worked in Munich all those years ago.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A
Yes.
quick linguistics lesson from Simon Baker at the end of the podcast.
But I know exactly how Simon feels because I live in a French speaking place. So I've got an apartment in a Spanish speaking place. My wife is Peruvian, and I don't understand half of what happens around me. But I have a recommendation for you, Simon. A great pair. I bought a pair of glasses the other day. You wear glasses from time to time with lenses, and it's called Even Realities. And what it does is it projects into the glasses. So it's not like, it doesn't have a camera, but it projects, listens, and can do simultaneous translation,
Oh, wow.
which has allowed me to discover what my kids are saying about me in front of me in Spanish.
Yeah. That's the warning on the box.
Yes.
You may not want
Use
to
in
hear what
controlled
you're hearing. Yeah.
environments. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Yeah. But anyway, these are things that you can, now we're getting into AI and all this sort of stuff. It's all this simultaneous translation. And by the way, I've been doing a few meetings recently in where I've tuned in, and it's been different languages flowing backwards and forwards. And Google Meet, astounding simultaneous translations. Astounding.
Well, there
I
you have
tune
it.
in. I'm working with someone at the moment, and they have a meeting in Spanish every Monday, and I never used to tune in. My business partner Gonzalo, clearly being Spanish, tuned into that one, and I've started tuning in because I have this simultaneous translation of everything that's being said in real time, and it's accurate and it's good. So they're the sort of.
I'm going to try that for sure.
Yep. You just have to turn on closed caption. Okay. On it. This is not Google Meet, but you can select the language of the meeting, and it translates to English.
Oh, there you have it.
Brilliant.
So there you go. So technology is going to be to the point where my absolutely lack of linguistic capability means I'll catch up to my wife who speaks 6 languages.
Mr. Bray,
Eventually.
are we going to see you in Madrid later this year?
Absolutely. And I'll bring a team as well. I'm really looking forward to being there. I mean, that's a highlight of my calendar. And I got to say, that's the one great thing about my career so far is this niche of property portals has enabled me to go all around the world and work with different teams and different people. So coming together in Madrid and seeing all the familiar faces will be awesome.
Go on, Simon, give us the pitch before we get out of here.
Okay, coming up this year on October 13, 14, 15. I hope that's right. Whatever the
I think
website.
you're wrong, but keep going.
Wait, 15, 16, 17.
There you have it. There we go.
So 15, 16, 17, we're doing the PPW Europe event in Madrid. Register today on www.ppweurope25.com. ppweurope25.com. Tickets are on sale now, going fast. And we already have over 100 registered. We're trying to get to about 450, maybe even touching to 500 this year would be my secret hope. Last 2 years, we've had fantastic speakers. Andy Florence has spoken twice, each of the last 2 years. Fantastic insights. We've already got, speakers from Zoopla and a range of other fantastic companies already registered. So register today, ppweurope25.com, and I look forward to seeing you there. And I'll see Simon there for sure. Actually, I'm hopefully going to. Hopefully,
tickets. Yeah, I just realized I'm not one of the 100 yet. Yeah.
No, you're not. But more importantly, I'm hopefully going with Simon to see the World Test Championship final, at least a couple of days of it. We have to organise that with a friend of ours, James. And of course, Australia takes on South Africa. For everyone out there who understands anything about cricket, as long as it's not like England playing Zimbabwe, where it was nearly 500 runs in the first day.
We're completely off topic at this point, but that was absolutely a crazy batting performance yesterday.
Yes.
So,
anyway,
look, this is the important conversation. This is the important conversation.
Yes.
So it's dangerous.
Anyone out there who has survived this far, thank you for listening. And if you email me directly at simon@onlinemarketplaces.com, I'll give you a fantastic discount code for the conference. There we go.
Beautiful.
There's a test to see.
Your reward for sticking with us for over an hour. Right then, until the next one, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be goodbye from Simon Bray.
Thanks, everybody. I'll see you at the cricket, Simon.
It's going to be goodbye from Simon Baker.
Yes, it's goodbye from Harvey.
And it's going to be goodbye from me. Thanks for joining, everyone, and we'll see you on the next one. Ta-ra.
Okay.